All right. Good evening and welcome to the London Planning Board for October 2nd, 2024. We could stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, let's see. We have some minutes for September 4th. Is there a motion on those?
Motion that we approve the minutes from September 4th.
Okay, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on those? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. All right. We have a walk-in tonight. We have a major subdivision, map 23, lot 19H. John?
So I was here several months ago discussing a project that we want to do down on Secocas Lake. At the time, I was told that we had to go through major subdivision to get the 6 units that we wanted. So we stepped back, we looked through the zoning and the state law, and we wanted to get the project going. So under the current zoning and the current state law, we could get a building permit for 2 dwellings along with 2 accessory dwelling units. So that permit's in hand to build the 4 structures that you see down there now. I'm back now wanting to move forward to try to get the additional 2. I guess, but before we get to that particular process, you guys do have a subdivision waiver request, which you should have in your packet that I gave through the code officer. I'm asking that you waive the subdivision requirement down there. This is a planned unit development, which quite frankly is new to Limerick. I don't know of another one that's in Limerick. The Limerick zoning ordinance does not touch at all on planned unit developments. The fact that there are no regulations, requirements, or guidelines, I don't know how you could possibly consider that a subdivision and enforce it. So I'm asking that you waive the subdivision requirement and allow the code officer to issue a building permit for 2 more dwellings down there on the property. I've been clear from the beginning, these, under state law, no local zoning law or requirement can stop the condominium form of ownership. So that is our intention down there. These 6 buildings will be owned individually. They will have deeds to their buildings. They do not have deeds to the land. There will be, under the Maine Condominium Act, we have to set up some real specific guidelines. Every inch of the property has to be designated who has access to it and who owns it. So the majority of the property will be owned, call it by the HOA, and will be common ground for everybody. They will have deeded rights to their building and 1 dock space, and potentially we may put in a garage unit where they can each have a storage garage to store some things for the winter or summer, whatever they want to do. So those will be deeded singularly. They can never sell none of the property can ever be sold. The property is always under the control of the HOA. We will set up some guidelines. The HOA has to have really strict guidelines on things that will allow and not allow. I know there's been some talk about rentals and Airbnbs. Our original set of guidelines will have no rental term for shorter than 30 days. So there'll be no weekend transitions of people coming in or investors coming in just to Airbnb them and people rolling out. We want owners that are going to be there and use them. Our clientele, our target customer, and we've had a lot of interest from family members of people that already own on the lake, families whose parents owned or currently own a house. They've had it for 30 or 40 years. The family has grown. They've outgrown the house because now there are kids and grandkids, and the children of the parents are now looking for a place to buy. It's not our target is not year-round people. They are year-round properties. I can't stop somebody from living there year-round, but based on their size, we don't expect to be year-round occupants. That being said, we think it's really a big win-win for everybody. There'll be 6, highly valued properties that'll be paying taxes, assuming they're not really set up for year-round living because of the size, so there'll be kids going to school, so, the seasonal type properties are what really helps the town move forward because they pay good taxes and have no school costs. We're set up on municipal water and sewer, so it will be 6 new customers for the sewer district and water, so that's a growth for them. Other than that, I think it's just, like I said, I think it's a quality project for the town. I don't see anything detrimental about it. I haven't had the neighbors are all positive about it. I haven't had any complaints from any of the neighbors. One building is already up. You can see what they're going to look like. They're right now, to meet the requirements we needed, 2 of them are less than 900 square feet because they're considered accessory dwelling units. So 2 are smaller than the other 2. And the 2 we look to put in would be on the larger size. They're 1,176 square feet as opposed to the 800.
Is there a reason why you couldn't meet a certain criteria for a major subdivision? Is there something that sticks out in the conditions that something you couldn't meet?
No,
Then that,
I just don't see where there is any rules or regulations for what we're doing at all.
so we just went through one in a 3-unit building, and personally I feel that you should go through the subdivision process. I don't see that there's anything here that you couldn't meet, but I was just asking to see if there was something that you didn't think you could meet.
No, I don't have any, it'll take some time.
Other than time.
We have the whole project.
I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but,
The whole project engineer, the 3-unit building is something that was...
just looking at from the light. Okay.
If the 3-unit building is something that is commonplace, you have...
For me, it's upside down. It should always be, it should be this way, so.
The 3-unit building, you've got plenty of zoning ordinance and rules and regulations for multi-unit buildings. So
Yeah.
that went from a single-family home to a 3-unit building, and they went through the process and it worked. And you have plenty of rules and regulations to look at and follow, and make it determine whether it's a determination whether it meets your criteria and should be allowed. In this regard, I don't know what criteria, regulations, or rules you would follow.
So as of right now, you don't have 4 units, you have 2 units, each with an accessory dwelling. So you don't have a 4-unit condo, you have a 2-unit condo, each with an additional
No?
dwelling unit. Because you can't sell an accessory dwelling unit on its own, it has to be attached to what it's an accessory to. So therefore, you just have 2 buildings, each with an accessory dwelling unit to make 4 units, but it's still only 2 properties to condo.
Each one is a building with an accessory dwelling unit, a building with an accessory dwelling unit. But again, under state law, you can't, the town cannot stop the condominium form of ownership.
Right, but you can't have an accessory dwelling unit without having it be an accessory to something. So it's not its own thing in order to be owned individually. It has to be owned by the person who owns the original building. So you have 2 units,
I guess
each with a unit attached, but you don't have a 4-unit condo.
They're detached,
Right, but
not attached.
it's part of that building. You can't have the accessory without the original. So
So I guess,
you still only have 2 condo units because they each have an accessory to it. So you don't have 4, you only have 2.
well, I guess I would ask, what part of your zoning or building code prohibits me from the condominium form of ownership? So if you own a home
Yep.
and you want to divide it in half and sell it,
Given that I have the home itself or the lot.
if you have a piece of property with a building on it, and you want to divide it in half and sell them as condominium units, you can do that. That actually, believe it or not, has been done once, I believe, in Limerick. There is a property
Yep.
that one person owns one half, one owns the other. And it's a very similar situation where there is a larger house and I guess what you consider an accessory dwelling unit. How it was permitted and built, I don't know, but I do know that they are separately owned.
But these are permitted based on being built under the terms of being under 900 square feet to conform with LD 2003 in order to be an accessory dwelling unit on its own in order to be built properly on the lot, correct?
Not necessarily under LD 2003.
Which is what requires the under 900 square foot in order to be put on
No,
the lot.
that's the town ordinance. The town ordinance requires it to be under 900 square feet, not LD 2003. LD 2003 says it has to be at least 190 square feet.
So, Stan, can I ask you a few questions here? So, I had some questions about this, and I asked Stan about them, and I'm hung up on the ownership thing too. 'Cause I understand where you're coming from, and if it was a one owner that owned a house and or owned a dwelling and an accessory dwelling, it would make it simpler in my mind. So, I'm still leaning towards just having a subdivision done. And would it, at that point, have to be a dwelling and an accessory dwelling, or at that point, could it be just 6 dwellings that could be?
Under 30 MRSA, subsection 4401, the law says dwellings, anything 3 or more has to go to the subdivision, so the separate dwellings. The key is, when John originally pulled the permit, he was having one accessory, one primary and one accessory dwelling. And my understanding at the time were they were going to be one owner for the primary and the accessory. Right? That would make it legal. So he would not have to do, under state statute, this is not anything to do with the ordinance, he would not have, John is correct. But if they're going to sell them separately, then it is a subdivision. Now, when you're talking apartments in one building, when you do 3 or more, that is a subdivision. So this is where it gets very confusing with the law, because LD 2003, which prompted this, allows multiple dwellings on a lot with water and sewer. It was very ill thought and rushed through, so it does leave these open-ended things. The attorney does say it is 3 or more, and I think I included that email, and there's one from April, the same thing, that said dwelling still has to go through the subdivision. The thing is, as long as he meets all the criteria, you can't turn it down, you can't deny it. Right? That's the law. So he is creating affordable housing, he is doing a benefit for the town, so, or they are, I think that it's you and a partner, right, or several. So they are, it's just, again, under the interpretation, if you go by state statute, 3 dwellings or more is a subdivision, and that's what I got for an answer.
And assuming the board disagrees with my waiver request, I've included the subdivision application. So you have that. I'm prepared to go that way. I don't, like I said, and Aaron agrees, I don't see anything that's going to stand in the way of it. So
I don't either. I think it would be a cleaner way of doing it, and so
I don't have a problem with the project, I just want to understand the ownership of it, because calling it an accessory dwelling unit means it needs to be attached to something, so if they're going to be separate, then I just want to understand, like, are we talking about units with something attached and their shared ownership between 2 people, or is it one, based on how that works?
Our intention is to sell each square to a different person. So if that requires the subdivision process in your minds, then I've included everything in the application for that. And I've got to check if...
John is absolutely right, and he was going by the ordinances. The ordinance doesn't address it that way, but the state statute did, and it does refer in LD 2003 that this does not circumvent a subdivision law. So that's why it is a subdivision.
So until something is sold, everything he's done so far is perfectly legit. Until something is actually sold, because right now there's a dwelling and an accessory dwelling and a dwelling and an accessory dwelling, and that's acceptable.
Right.
So that is,
We're getting into gray areas where, and I don't want to say, but let's pick a developer, he does this, and he puts one up for sale, and legally you can't put it up for sale in the state statute until it's approved by the planning board review. So we
That
need to
ham
keep
division was
the
for
developer
sale.
out of the hot water and allow them to continue, because he's already got a lot, they already have a lot of money invested. Okay? And that's where I stand. I'm here to help everybody, so I don't want to tie up somebody's money, which we did with, I don't know if you guys remember, but the solar farm on Dole's Ridge. I held them up, they had $2 million worth of equipment that was sitting there idle for a month. That costs a lot of money. We don't want to tie up the developer, they can continue as long as they go through the process, so that when he gets one completed, or they get one completed, then they can sell it and they're freeing up their investment. And that's the goal.
so,
But everything they're doing is within the law and within the ordinance, so there really isn't a problem. I think it's just a misinterpretation. Do I really have to do the subdivision?
okay.
And if that's the case, we do it. And we're not opposed to it. As everybody's seen, we're making progress. The next 2 are, somewhat important to us. We're hoping to, if we can do the other 2, we're going to enhance the property, like I said, with garage storage space for people. We've tossed around a pickleball court for the HOA to use. We want it to be a really positive and attractive project for the community.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, because I can't remember right now, so I'm asking for clarification, but doesn't mean condo law change when it's more than 4 units, because I know for financing, it does,
Yeah.
as far as approval, but does that make a big difference here if we approve 4 versus 6 for how they get sold?
It will not, because he's got 4, he's exceeding that condo regulation.
Right.
Because 4 is the cut. But the reason for that statute for condos was because there was a lot of cities and towns in Maine that didn't want condos. And the law turned around and said, you can't do that anymore. You have to allow them as long as they meet the criteria or meet the criteria of the ordinance and the law. So that's where the condo place comes in. Same thing, you got a bunch of tiny homes coming, that's the same thing. We cannot deny them as long as they meet the setbacks. And people are starting to live in these tiny homes because it's more affordable and functional. So we're gonna get challenged with it. And unfortunately, Limerick's seeing that humongous spurt of growth. That's,
So,
I actually would question the statement of whether it's 4 or 6. I don't believe it makes any difference. But I could be wrong, and
but it does not.
my attorney has not told me it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So,
The key is if he's planning on doing 6, do it now, because doing a revision just creates more headache.
okay.
So just do it all at once. It's not gonna change anything. He's still allowed to do it. It is allowable under water and sewer district. So it just makes more sense to do it all at once than it does to.
I know when it comes to the selling side, when it's under 4, it's 4 under units,
it's considered residential versus commercial. If you're selling a 4-unit apartment building,
no, for condos, not for 4 units.
Okay.
So for condos, when there's less than 4 units, the amount of insurance needed by the association, the amount of reserves the association needs in order for a sale of a property changes based on the needs that financing lenders need in order to have a profitable, or a mortgageable property. And so I don't want to get in a situation where someone is buying the first one and the difference between 4 and 6 depends on whether or not they're able to sell it again or get the right insurance or financing
So
for it, because it does make a difference.
our attorney is handling all the condo, through the Maine Condo Act. All that I know I haven't done one as big as 6. I've done several 2s. And we still have to put together a reserve study. We still have to have reserves before they move in. All that, and there is banks, when the banks come into finance, they do look at that and look at the age. You know, this is a new project, so they realize that certain things that need to be put aside for reserves go out 20 years. In our case, our condo, our HOA rules, the owners are going to be responsible for their building, so our reserves will be less. Our reserves will be for, you know, the dock, the infrastructure, the driveways and things like that. But as far as the buildings themselves go, the owners will be responsible for those, so we won't need reserves for the building.
So Stan, how deep do we have to go into the condo stuff?
We don't.
They just need to know that they have the condo, they're going to have the condo association,
Right, that's.
and that is something that it's not something
That's when
that,
you make your conditions, if you want to make the condition is it needs to be deeded. John's already gone through this whole thing. There will be a homeowners association. Those you'll want all to be part of the conditions.
And will we have to decide how long they have until that's implemented, since we don't already have an ordinance?
So we won't be able to sell one. I can't sell the first one.
So there's
Right,
no-
but you also can't turn it over to the owners until a certain amount of it is completed, so.
Correct. So depending on how many units we end up with, if it stays at the 4, after the third one was sold, it then gets turned, once it hit more than 50%, so you gotta get 75. Once the third one was sold, then the HOA takes over. If we get to 6, after the 4th one is sold, the HOA takes over the project.
And like roads will be paved by then, it's gonna be a private road or a public road?
It's all driveways, there's no pavement.
Okay.
See, and all of that plat is actually on the applicant and the developers. It's not part of the town's.
No title company would allow a condo to be sold without every criteria from the Maine Condominium Act being put in place.
Oh, no, I agree, but I just didn't know if, sometimes it's like, until this project is done, then the road isn't paved, or the road isn't turned over to the town if it is, or if
There
it's
is no-
private, so that's why I was
it's
just
all private.
asking.
It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
private.
the road's gonna stay private, which he already mentioned. They will pay because that's part of the ordinance, but the association and part, once the review's been done and it's approved,
Mhm.
then the rest of it all falls between the developer, the banks, and the prospector, the possible owner.
So Stan, how is the property looked at? You have 6 dwellings and a property.
Yeah.
Is it actually 7, or is it, how do they look at that?
But right now, there's 6.
There's 6, but there's 6 and a property. The condo will own the property, so how does that,
Again, under the law, he can't sell the land he can't sell it separately because then it becomes non-conforming lots, okay? So it stays as one, the association will own it, the land has nothing to do with it because you're not dividing land. This is another good educational thing which I want to bring up down the road for subdivisions because this law keeps changing. But a subdivision is a division of lots, parcels, dwellings, and there is one Aaron brought up for businesses of multiple use, but we'll go into that later. He's not dividing the land, or they're not dividing the land, so the land isn't the issue. It is you have dwellings.
okay,
So I talked to Mike O'Donnell about that a little bit as far as taxation.
okay,
So what they do is they value each building. They'll have a building value. They'll value the land in its entirety. They divide that amongst the 6 buildings.
okay,
So each unit gets a portion of the land cost, and they
okay,
pay taxes.
okay. All right, that makes sense.
Very
Okay,
similar to a trailer park. They're taxed on the trailer, and I don't know if Limerick combines portions of the land, but that land is owned by the park. So it's the same idea. It's just instead of manufactured housing, you've got stick-built homes. I think
And it's a deed instead of a
yeah,
bill of sale.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's just not something, it's not something I'm familiar with, and I'm
the first one I know of, like I said, in Limerick, so.
okay, so, how does the board feel? Does everyone feel like they want to move forward with a subdivision?
It sounds like legally that's the way we have to proceed, right?
You don't really have a choice, but you should vote on it because he asked. But that's okay.
Okay. So,
I think we should have a subdivision.
okay,
I think because it is the first one, I think this is, we've asked, to your point about when you're subdividing a home into multiple units, it is similar in some level, and I think it sets the precedent for us. Someone will ask the next time that, and we'll look at whether we did it this time or not.
And we need to figure
But
out.
I don't want to, I'm sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, so I agree with
I
you.
don't want to slow it down, and I certainly don't think that, you can't get through the subdivision process. There's nothing that would, I don't think,
Yeah, and-
that would stop you from
and I'm-
doing this, and that's a good thing.
I'm willing to acquiesce if that's what you want. I mean, clearly, I would hope that you might look at my waiver, but if that's not an option, then we go through the process. It's not going to slow us down. We've got permit for 4 foundations. We're moving, the reason we did this was so we could get the project started,
Yeah,
and not put it off. And if we had started this months ago, then we'd, might just be getting approvals now. We wanted to get the project started. We're well on the way. So anybody wants to see what's going on and how we're doing it and what the building's gonna look like, they can certainly see that and look at it and do their thing.
that's one person's opinion, it's mine.
Yeah,
So,
and it won't slow us down. I mean, I'd like to,
Yeah.
ideally, I'd like to get the other 2 foundations in before winter, but if we do them in the spring, we do them in the spring.
Joanne, do we have enough time to advertise before the 16th for a public hearing and sidewalk and all that? So we could do it, have a sidewalk and public hearing on the 16th of October? don't know, when are you guys available? After 4:30?
It's like dark at 5:30 now, right?
Yeah. After 4:30, Wednesday, the 16th?
Of October?
Yes.
I won't be able to be here, so,
Okay.
you guys know without me.
So, we're going to have an issue with quorum, or we may have an issue with quorum. Mike is a tenant of John's.
He's, well, technically he's not.
Technically-
I do not own the building that Mike lives in. My nephew owns the building,
Is it
and I
possible that you
I manage
can
it.
get the board to appoint a couple fill-ins, should that happen? You should always have some.
We don't have that authority. So what we can do is we can do the rule of necessity, which if we had to. So I'm aware of Mike's situation, so I understand.
And I appreciate what Mike's trying to do, but the reason for recusal would be as if there was any potential for him to have financial gain in my project. Me managing the building he lives in,
Right.
and I don't own it. His lease isn't in my name. My nephew owns the building. I manage it for him. So
Yep, I
Mike would have
understand.
no financial gain.
Okay.
So the case.
Why should recuse himself?
So the case in this is when you open the meeting, what you should do, if there's a potential conflict, is the individual say, I'm a relative or whatever.
So I just want,
But you can still vote if you can say, and the rest of the board has to vote after you, but if you say that you can make a decision with an open mind, without bias, and you have no financial connection, you can still participate, but you need to do that before you do the meeting, that's all.
Mhm.
And then that way, you're making it known, nobody can come after you, and nobody can contest it. So you're still able to do the
So-
same thing. It's just you need to be upfront before you vote.
so I still think Brian has the conflict, so we're, but that would be four of us, so if Jason couldn't make it, then we would be okay. So let's have it at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever.
5 o'clock is better.
5 is good? Okay, 5 o'clock on the 16th. And then,
Will we be able to take notes? Minutes of the sidewalk?
we're gonna figure that one out. That is a new one that,
It came up years ago.
You know, in the past, I've seen, when you guys have had site walks, in the minutes, I've seen it, the site walk, this person asked that question. But I remember when it was done on Route 5.
so I think,
With the cross-country skiing, I remember when the report came out, there was questions asked at the site walk, and they were part of the minutes. So somebody took,
Yeah, because the questions were brought up during the meeting, not.
now, because there were things that said at the site walk, the question was,
so
I could be wrong.
So I think what's gonna have to happen is at very minimum, when we come back from the site walk, we need to say, these people were here, or these people were at the site walk, and that needs to go into the record. And then we also need to say, do like an overview of, we took a walk around, we looked at, and so maybe there should be a few notes as to
Just, what happened?
what was happening. I try to not allow much for discussion other than, what do you plan on doing with this grade? You know, so, because it's a physical thing that you gotta be able to look at and talk about, so, and I try to limit all that other discussion to going to the public hearing, but there, you know, there's discussion that happens, so.
I'll be there and I can start taking notes what the questions are, so you'll have a record of it.
Okay.
That's no problem. That's a standard procedure in most sidewalks.
So we will have to start doing that. That's something that kind of came out of this other thing. So are you okay with 16th? Do we have everything we need to move forward with the application?
Everything's in the application.
Okay.
Did you make the motion to move forward as a subdivision?
I suggested, I did make a motion, but I
There is one
Karen was
thing
asking.
missing, and I will get that to you guys. I forgot to add in there the title right and interest.
So what about, do we
The
need,
book and page number,
Huh?
the book and page number, the deed, the
Yeah,
application,
copy.
copy of the deed.
Yeah, I already got it, I just didn't.
do we need a letter from fire chief or anything like that? Is it?
We do need to get that, and I'll notify Lee.
Yes.
That's easy, and it's not the road commissioner because it's DOT.
There's already an approved entrance there, so, but I don't know if it needs,
It doesn't because it's already there, and DOT's not gonna have a problem with it.
okay,
Unless it increases an enormous amount of traffic, and it's not. It's not
Okay.
Dunkin' Donuts, so
okay.
you're not gonna serve coffee, right?
Not.
An interesting HOA
The
back
fire
there.
chief, the fire chief just needs to go and say
Okay.
that it's not gonna pose a risk.
There's a fire hydrant within feet.
Was there any plan for the other side of the right-of-way down the road?
If we do a storage garage,
Yep.
it would be over there, if you look on the print. It would be on the other side,
Over here?
that big print.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's in plan. Yep.
We own all the way over to behind the Dollar General. So there would be people have asked for storage, because these buildings are small. and
Yeah.
The way they're built, the basement is living space.
Yeah.
So there really is minimal storage, so people have asked for storage. So we will most likely put up 20 by 120 garage unit, so everybody has a 20 by 20. If we move forward with a pickleball court, that would be over there. That's not a guarantee yet, but it's something we've talked about. At one point, we did talk about doing some back units. That's off the table. So the deed and the condominium documents will be clear that this is the limit of development for units. We figured that, we had talked about doing 2 or 3 back units.
Yeah, that was my kind of question, is didn't know if the first 6 go, quick, is it like, well, let's get 4 more on the other side of the
We
road?
thought about it. We don't want, the beaches, maybe the nicest beach on the lake, we don't want to overcrowd it with, now you've got 8 or 10 families. Right now, everybody's going to have beach frontage. It's not deep, it's combined beach frontage, so they can all use the whole beach. But to put units out back would create issues with, people walking over the common areas in between units to get, so we opted out of that. We didn't want to overcrowd it.
Okay.
All right, so,
But a sizable sort of multi-door kind of garage building. Everybody kind of gets a one roll-up door or
So we
something.
have one overhead door,
Yeah.
a 20 by 20 square to put, most, the interested parties so far have been snowbirds,
Yes.
but they have a boat, they got a couple jet skis, they got a four-wheeler,
Yeah.
they want to put away. We don't want boats and four-wheels and everything parked in the, like the parking areas are designated for cars. So if they have something like that, it has to go in the garage.
Okay.
okay,
The garage would change that. but-
so,
Power service, just so we're all clear, the power service for the whole complex will come in on the other side of that right-of-way, that driveway. It'll be on a major panel, and it'll all go underground from there to the units.
okay.
She did find one thing, John, I didn't spot because I didn't see this one, but your parking spaces, you need 2 for each unit.
And we have, you'll see, you'll see.
You have 10 on your plan, that's all.
Yeah, when you look at the, when we go down there, once we get started with construction, you'll see that everything moved back a little bit. So everybody has more than 2 spots right in front of their building.
Okay,
So
and
everything-
these are extra, or these are
Those
something
are
you're
going to
doing
be
right
there.
now?
All the
Okay.
parking spots will be in front of the units now.
Okay.
We had to meet the 85 or 86 foot setback from the water. And when we staked that out, we decided it was better to even come back further than to try to squeeze them really close to the water. So that moved everything back a little bit.
So you can have, hopefully by the next meeting, a revised map.
I can, yeah,
Okay.
That way it will give a visual and then if things fly through. And the other thing, John, you'll want to put a box on there for,
it says draft.
planning board approval.
Okay,
And then if there's any conditions, that will get added to that as well.
okay.
Okay.
I will do the best I can I know they're swamped, so I'll do the best I can to have it for the next meeting. We can visually see it, but if you want to make that as a condition of final approval, having it redrawn, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I don't.
We have to.
I don't want to speak for the board, but it might be better to wait before you do another revision until you get to the conditions, because all of that's going to be added to the plan.
Yep,
And you don't pay for it twice.
yeah, we have to have, so the plan has to be filed with the registry, and it will have designated areas of ownership, common ownership, limited common ownership, and things like that. So that has to be done according to the Maine Condominium Act.
Got it.
Okay. So, do we want to make a motion to accept the application and set the sidewalk and public hearing?
Yes.
I'll make the motion, I guess. Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded.
So I'll just recuse myself now through the process.
Okay.
You guys are okay with me
You're
continuing?
you're all set. We had to work through it a little bit, and I think you're fine, so.
All right.
Okay, so, all in favor? Okay, it's 4 and 1 abstention. Recusal or abstention. So, thank you, John. Okay, we have received some correspondence from Ben McCall, who is counsel for the town, regarding 41 Rangy Road conditional use permit. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look through it, or if you have any thoughts about it.
I have not had a chance to look through this.
So I did kind of a quick look through. From what I understand, the Superior Court looked at this case and decided that the appeals board acted inappropriately and did not hear the case in the appellate manner. So as an appellate review, they heard it as a de novo review. Because of that, they skipped to the planning board's decision, and they said that the planning board did not provide enough evidence of information at the sidewalk. So what I would like to propose is that we reach out to Zach's, it's Zach Brandline from, I think it's Brunsonshire, and ask them to provide us some direction as to how to proceed. So there was, I believe, 3 of us that were on the board at that time, and then there's 2 others that weren't. I don't know how that works, whether you're allowed to participate in that stuff, or or how that works. So we need to get some information from the lawyer. With the board's permission, I would like to reach out to whoever they replace Zach with, to discuss this further. So, does the board have any thoughts on that?
So I guess my only question is, why not use Ben? I guess what's the issue there?
So why would we use Ben, who represented the appeals board?
Yeah, I just didn't understand.
So Ben represented the appeals board,
Yeah.
and from my opinion, Ben did not guide the appeals board to hear when they were going off track, and hearing it as a de novo instead of an appellate review. He should have advised them that they were going off the rails and they needed to hear only the appellate review, and he did not do that. So I feel as though he's represented the appeals board. We've had counsel with Brunsonshire, and I think that we should continue with that. But that's totally my opinion, and if the board feels differently, then so be it. So.
Yeah, I just didn't understand the relationship. I'm fine reaching out to Brunsonshire.
Okay.
The key is when the Superior Court reviewed it, it was deemed the appeals board didn't review the correct information, because in the notice of decision, it mentions there was concerns during the site walk, and those concerns weren't addressed in the notice of decision. So again, it supports why we take the notes at the site walks.
Yeah.
And again, where Ben is the town attorney, so he knows the history of the town, but whether it is the firm that Zach no longer works for the firm, but whether it's that firm who has all the records, does it, it's the notice of decision needs to be corrected and amended to address the concerns that were not mentioned in the final decision. So that's what needs to be done. There won't be any more public hearings or anything to determine. You just need to support the findings of the plan board, which was a denial. So that's really all you're doing, Aaron, is just getting that notice of decision amended to support the reasons of your denial.
So in that case, when we issue a new notice of decision, the board votes?
The board will have to vote to approve that notice of decision, and whether or not it remains as a denial, or if they had the incorrect information, then they'll approve it. Again, I don't see where you could reverse your denial, because once you get that information, it's going to prove you denied it for these reasons, not for what the appeals board decided.
Is it possible that all the appropriate information is already there and the notice of decision just needs to be reworded?
That's exactly what needs to be done.
So that we don't change the process?
But you're not changing anything. The notice of decision needs to be amended to address all that information that is in that packet that the judge was looking at. They're not going to sit through every single page. The appeals process was done incorrect. They were looking at it, as Aaron said, the only time the appeals board does that when they're in conflict with the code enforcement. It's only based on what was not met.
Mhm.
So this is all you're doing, Aaron, is having an attorney rewrite that notice of decision to include those other facts that are in that packet. It's all there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think Joanne has notes on some of the stuff that was questioned on the sidewalk. So between the two, if we have all that information, just give it to whatever attorney you decide. And that should be it, and then you have another hearing.
So will we need, where we didn't have official minutes of the sidewalk, would we need, I guess this is a lawyer question, will we need to get affidavits or something from people as to what was said during that?
That would be advisable.
A lot of the discussion took place as to what happened with the sidewalk and things that were covered at the sidewalk, and that's in all of minutes.
Okay, so, that's something that we'll have to discuss with the lawyer and,
Yeah, and Bernstein Shore wrote the first,
That's right.
the decision.
They
So it
did.
makes sense for them to correct it, and let's just,
okay,
But don't make it bigger or think it's bigger than it is. It's
Yeah.
just that that notice of decision wasn't complete.
Yep.
And those are really important, both on the enforcement side and on judicial. So
Yep.
that's all it is.
okay.
And you don't want to relive that whole scenario.
So do we need to vote? Or would you say yes?
I guess I would like a vote for me to reach out to Branson Shore.
Did you motion?
I'll make a motion that I reach out to Branson Shore to discuss this
I'll second.
and bring it back to the board. Okay, it's motion and seconded. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Approve the budget turned into the budget committee. So the budget's already been approved, so. Thank you. Howard, did you have something, or just, okay. Okay. So, I guess we're all set with the budget then. What was there for a budget?
The only thing that went up was the advertising went up.
Okay,
That was about the only thing that surprised.
all right, good. We need to sign the findings of fact for B&M restoration and remediation.
You've got both of them there.
We can,
Little tabs on them.
we'll do that after the meeting.
Yep.
And then, next meeting will be October 16th. And we'll have a site walk. What's the address there? 140?
I gotta get back with the 911 officer.
It's,
They issued me 146,
okay.
but apparently the guy down back is also 146.
All right, so it's in the area of 140.
It's right behind 150, so I'm
150,
guessing they'll change it to 124.
150 is the station?
150 is the station. Stan, I came across that. You guys issued me 146 Washington Street.
Yes.
Okay.
It's way down back. That's also 146 Washington Street.
We're gonna fix it.
So we'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, so, in the area of 150 Washington Street, and at 7 PM, there's a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you, and have a good night.